Welcome everyone to our collection celebration for 2021. We are indeed fortunate to have with us tonight Marina Brown, our Person of Renown, for collection number 13, Footprints. We want to welcome her. We're going to ask you to use the chat feature. If you have questions that you want to pose to Marina, Bill Opperman is going to be monitoring them. Bill Opperman will ask the questions at the end, and you certainly may use the chat feature to talk with each other. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to J.C. Gatlin. JC is going to interview Marina and kick the evening off. All right, JC.
Hey, Marina, how are you?
I'm great. Great to be here.
We appreciate all the hard work that you put into reading all of the entries and choosing the top winners. And you want to tell us a little bit about everything that you went through on that?
Well, it wasn't arduous. I mean, it wasn't that I went through it. It was a delight, really. In a way, after reading the 60 of these stories, I honestly wish there were more. They were such good quality. There were just unique ideas and imaginative situations and, vibrant characters. So all the things that you look for in a good short story were there. And honestly, choosing 10 was truly difficult. I could have chosen 20 or more.
I know I read them as they come in, and I would have had a hard time choosing as well. Definitely. So what type of genres or type of books do you like to read?
That's interesting. Even though the novels I've written are in fact novels, they're fiction, often historical fiction, but what I actually like to read are histories and biographies. I'm not really a big fiction consumer. However, short stories are something that I can buy into, enjoy the impact of, and not have the kind of secret worry that a fantastic novelist, fiction writer is going to get into my brain and then ruin whatever thoughts I might have had of my own. It'll sort of mess up my own creative thoughts. So yeah, I love reading history, and there are ideas aplenty in historical pieces for fiction that I like to use.
Okay. And do you write daily, or what's your writing style like?
Because I also write as a journalist I do features for the Tallahassee Democrat and for Tallahassee Magazine. So I am on assignment much of the time. When I'm writing a novel, yeah, absolutely. It's for me anyway, it's important to do that and not lose track of the characters who, as we probably all know, tend to wander away if you don't tend to them. And yeah.
So that brings the really big question we ask all authors. Are you a outliner or pantser?
I am not an outliner. I wish that I were. I usually in the novels, have a kind of an idea, either a beginning idea, a nucleus, or an idea where I want things to end up, or maybe a setting that is so powerful that many roads lead off of that, and I can kind of choose one to follow and populate it. But yeah, I wish I were an outliner. I hear people who approach it like that and do scenes and bang bang bang, kind of tape everything together, and it's wonderful. My ones are not like that, sadly.
So what is your writing kryptonite? Is there anything that puts up a roadblock for you that you have to overcome?
That's very, I've not really thought of that. I think more than anything else, it would be that life gets in the way, and the discipline of sitting down. And I don't know who it was who said, the muse may not be there every day, but you want to be there when the muse shows up. So, you know, if you are at your writing desk every day, now and then, magic's going to happen. So, yeah, that, you know, writing for the newspaper on deadline and interviews, and that does get to be kind of, you know, intervenes in what I'm trying to do sometimes.
Well, that is a great quote. You said that the muse may not be there every day, but you want to be there when it shows up.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really good. So if you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would that be?
Don't be afraid. I mean, probably here all of us have written short stories, but I would guess that most everybody here has also done a novel. And just in the very beginning, before you think about novel writing, oh my God, only, you know, grown-ups, only masters write novels. And so I think it's maybe held some of us back a bit. But, you know, novels are composed of entities, mechanical things you do have to employ. And you may not have a, you know, a perfectly running novel at the end of the first one or second, but soon you get to know, you become facile with putting together a novel, and it's not so hard. It's, you know, you look forward to the long process and interaction with a certain number of people, your characters.
That's right. So how did publishing your first book change your writing process? Or did it make a change?
I was part of a, let's see, I guess there were three of us, three women. The other two had all published novels. One was a master of grammar. The other one was kind of a free thinker, but together they really helped me understand. I mean, at that point, I honestly didn't know what POV meant. And so, yeah, it was a learning process, kind of like going to, well, I wouldn't even say grad school. I was an undergrad for sure. But yes, they really helped a lot, reading what you've written to others and having them tell you if it makes sense or not. And eventually you kind of know when you're on the right track as time goes on.
Okay. So with all of your accomplishments, what are you most proud of?
Are you talking about in writing or other things?
Well, writing, but you know, if there's something else, that's fine too.
Well, I'm a painter also, and I did have a great big show this past year. It's called the Lemoyne Museum, and I had all 5 galleries filled with my paintings. So that was like astounding. And then for the Orphan of Potigliano to get Book of the Year, that was unbelievable. That was, yes, the apogee. But there's always, you know, the question after that, you know, can I write another novel? Do I have it in me? Is there, you know, where is the muse? Is she out to lunch, or, you know, so.
Do you have anything that you'd like to tell all the authors here tonight?
Well, that all of you who submitted, that I read your work, I am so impressed. It's such high quality work. I'd also say, and this is a kind of a little plug, but go back into your own files and look through stories that you've written or other things that you've done, because there may be little nuggets, little gems that you didn't recognize, or you were a point in your life where you couldn't do anything with them. I will tell you, and this is the plug, that this book just came out, and it's got 35 short stories, some of which have been, you know, with me for a long time, and I just never got around to publishing them. So you might want to do that and find hidden gems in there that you can, you know, work with now.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much. Chrissy, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, JC. Those are great questions. We're going to let you do this again next year. All right. And Marina, I think you have some prepared remarks that that you shared with me earlier. Would you go through those, please? I thought they were excellent.
Okay, well, again, I just want to say to everybody here who submitted and you know, they were wonderful, wonderful stories. They were ingenious in so many ways. You know, short stories. I'd like to talk just a little bit about short stories and novels and just writing in general, but short stories can be like novels, or they can be like poems, or like whole lifetimes where the essence has been distilled and offered to the reader, but in a concentrated and really powerful form. A novel gives an author time to develop the characters through the usual things, descriptions, their behaviors, dialogue, as well as we plot twists and turns together. While the short story demands that you do all of that, but you do it quickly. So a short story should never offer the reader less than what a novel does, but it has to be a concentrated experience, vibrant, clear enough, meaningful enough to grab and hold a reader on what you might call a powerful excursion rather than a meandering journey like a novel might be. So prose writing in general, well, I don't even want to say flash fiction because that for me is one of the hardest things ever, but short stories, novellas, novels, they do have many things in common, of course, that all of you employ all the time. These basics, of course, should always be followed using the correct point of view, perfect grammar, spelling, and punctuation, and beautiful language. For me in particular, because I also do write poetry and publish it, language and how a description is put, the words chosen are particularly resonating. And I will say that two of the choices that I made in this selection were poems. One of them by Julie Simon, Dirt Road Women. I chose just one little section that I would like to read because the language is so lush. She's talking about some women on a sandy beach and their children are nearby. She says, "We follow the clues we know. Bike tires swerve in sugar sand and pick up again. Joy lives in the mismatched treads of uphill, sifting silently to mystery in sand without rain, granules of instants and hours. Sun shines across the twin cove, just down and away from the road, and tells me the time." So, you know, even though it's poetic, you get a very clear picture, and it's colorful. You know where you are, which is very, very important in any kind of story. You must orient. But short stories like the ones in this excellent book will always have certain characteristics, most of which you already know. The character, the setting, the plot, the conflict, its resolution, and an overall theme. So I'll be giving some examples as we go through of a variety of these things. Obviously, as I said, the short story writer has to get busy quickly. They may only have, what, 2,500, 5,000 words in a short story to make your point and capture your reader. Some, of course, go quite a bit higher in word count. But let's start for a minute with character. In a short story, establishing that central character early is necessary. And we do it with dialogue, with our descriptions, the behaviors of the characters. And I've got one little example that I just made up, which in 3 sentences, I think will tell you what I mean. The character needs to be, get his little hook into you right away. Besides the fact that his girth now exceeded his belt circumference by 5 inches, Dan staggered up the stairs with hope in his heart. "Baby, you ain't never had pancakes the like of what I'm going to bring you this morning." With such a promise, Dan felt himself irresistible. So immediately, we know a lot about Dan. We know how he looks, how he moves, where he lives, his 2-story house, that he's in a relationship, and that his confidence level is pretty darn good, even after he's gained the weight. So that's kind of what you want to do. There's another one, a quickie. Harry blew his nose. The conventional outside way men like him had learned from their fathers was acceptable. He wiped the residual snot on the back of his hand and glanced in the right rearview mirror at his 300-pound frame. Not the best physique for a guy in his line of work, but he was agile enough for crawling under houses and into the attics of homes he was hired to inspect. Damn good at it. Not so good at keeping a woman happy. So in this case, again, we immediately know a lot about the guy, how he looks, what he does for a living, that he's not so confident as Dan, but you know, it's okay. He seems like he might be a nice guy and we want to know more. So right away, we get a character in the mind of our reader, because we need to use setting and time, another mechanical tool, to help the reader identify with these characters. We need to tell them what century they're in, what season, maybe what time of day. Because remember, it's like leading your reader into a dark room with blinders on. They have no idea where they're going to go. It's like total sensory deprivation, and it's up to us to paint for them a whole new world and then populate it with believable people, period, and things. And we've got to do it so quickly. So the landscape, the room, the building, the senses, they can come through an omniscient narrator, like, well, you know, someone who is not part of the action, but who can kind of see into the minds of everybody there, this overview, omniscience, presence, or one of the characters. And by their reactions, we know that. So we don't want to forget also from time to time to reiterate where we are, what setting we're in, and show how maybe that also impacts the character. For instance, the winter wind from a high desert deposited ice crystals in her hair. She tasted the few that fell to her lips and wondered at their saltiness, hoping it meant the sea was near. So we have no idea why that's important to her, but it will keep us reading because you've dropped a little hint, a clue. We see her in the cold and we want to know more. One person who did this really well, I thought, was Bart Huitema. Is that right? Maybe in his story, Kara Michaels here. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to read all of the selections, but in this particular story, Kara Michaels has ditched her mountain bike in the trees lining the edge of a housing development. She's got a heavy backpack on she's carrying it around, and she's kind of sneaking around in the dark with these half-built houses around. So we know something is going to happen. He has established the setting, the time, and the character, and left us kind of, we have no idea what's going to happen. Those are all the characteristics of not only a short story, but a good novel. But it's that it was so well compressed and drawn so quickly. And then we have the conflict. So here we have this place, this period, these people. What is the conflict? Well, it can be the difference between what a character wants or needs and what is actually happening to him. Whether the character is being thwarted or frustrated, being denied, if he's yearning for something, he's lost something, he can't gain something, he's trying to rectify some situation. This is his conflict, and how he reacts to that is going to drive what comes next, which is the plot. So the actual plot is made up of events and behaviors from this interaction between what's going on around the character and his conflict. So it's often necessary and helpful really to allude to a previous conflict, which adds to the urgency and maybe the excitement of resolving the conflict that you've just introduced. For example, this time Laura decided she wouldn't let this slight, this hurt, this subtle spittle in the face eradicate what she had built. fragile as it was, Jack wouldn't burn her house down a second time. So we know that something happened before. There's a history with Jack, and she's got the power now. She's not going to let that happen to her again. In one story where a conflict is quickly introduced in this selection, it was called Taking a Powder. And in this, I won't read it right this minute, but here a woman is in a mental institution and her husband is kind of bidding her goodbye for a short time, suggesting that it'll take him about 2 weeks to get the situation resolved with the kids, get them adjusted. And in the meantime, she should be able to take care of getting herself better, sort of better in quotes. So her conflict is obviously that she doesn't want to be in the mental institution. And I think the last word that the author wrote was that the husband slithered away. So he's a jerk. She's in a place she doesn't want to be. And it has our attention right away. So we've got this wonderful plot. We've got the conflict. If you are extremely clever, you might be able to add one conflict on top of another, as people did in Whiplash. I think that was Fern Goodner, where I won't tell you the end of that story because it is a wonderful ending, but she was able to layer a few conflicts, which just added to the excitement of the short story. In short stories, happily, there usually is a resolution of the conflict. Often it's quick, a sentence, a word, perhaps a quick conclusion that gives an understanding of why the author gave the tale its name, for instance. Things may work out well for the protagonist, or they may be thwarted. Sometimes people get their just desserts, or we may be left hanging with a conundrum that will haunt us for days. But usually, unlike in novels, especially novels that want to become series, there is a resolution. Sometimes there's a bit of a wink from the author to the reader. In a short story of mine called The Day Doug Fell Overboard, I won't go into all of it, but it's kind of built on a thing that happened to me when I lived on a boat with my former husband. In this case, the woman gets up in the middle of the night on their yacht. She trips and falls and wedges herself in the head, the toilet room, between the hull of the boat and the toilet, and she can't move. And stuck there, calling out, but he doesn't hear her because he's usually involved with the engine and the moving parts of the boat. She begins to fall into kind of a half sleep and dreams of a happier time when she was in Italy and playing in a cool fountain in Rome, at which point she realizes that the water she feels splashing over her isn't cool, it's warm. And that her husband has come into this area and, yes, is using the commode. In the end, he's angry at her for having wedged herself there, that he's now going to have to take the whole plumbing apart to get her out. And at the very last sentence, it is the last sentence is that was the day that later in the day, Doug fell overboard and Barbara again began to hear the strains of Verdi. So we kind of know what happened to Doug. But anyway, overall, when you sit back and look at your short story, you probably do want to say, have I accomplished what I wanted to do with the theme? What was this story about? What was I really getting at? So the overall theme might be what you call its message or its lesson. Could be something like we all live in a state of anxiety, or all people are generally good, or most people are generally bad. In the case of Barbara and Doug on the boat, it's about getting your just desserts, and or maybe it's how life turns on a dime. But the short story is perfect for doing those quick turns, kind of like if you're a fencer and you do a you know, one quick lunge and, you know, you're the winner. That's kind of sometimes how a short story can feel. A short story writer then can use hard facts. You can use whimsy in telling your tale. Magical realism is a frequent tool. Some stories may sound like adult fairy tales, others just like legends bearing lessons from the ancients. But for me, they're often surprising power. Is like you might say, a fabulous hors d'oeuvre or an amazing piece of chocolate, something small, intense, and memorable, which tends to make me want to go back for more. And that is the feeling that I looked for in these stories. And again, it was hard to choose which ones. There were so many great ideas. And so I hope that all of you will continue to write more of them. They're wonderful exercises in the mechanics of good writing and in the bases for your future novels. So thank you. I hope to see where your imagination takes you next.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marina.
You're welcome.
And the way that we clap on Zoom is like this or like this.
Okay.
So Marina, I think you get some of everything. And we want to make sure that you don't leave any of you too soon, because we do have a slideshow that Sue Gerheim put together for us. We're going to show at the very end. Sue is just a mastermind with one of those things. She's been instrumental in the collection contest for the last several years. And we hate that this is her last year. She felt like she needed to step back a little bit from all of her obligations. She's just been a wonderful guiding light for us. Let's go to Bill Opperman. That's right. Absolutely applause for Sue. She's wonderful. Bill, would you pick out some of the questions that came in, and we're going to turn it over to you and Marina, please.
Okay. I believe I am unmuted. Am I not? Yes, we can hear me. All right. Mark O'Brien has a question for you. And I think it has to do with the relationship as a writer between fiction and nonfiction. He asks, do you think fiction is a fair and peaceful way that a journalist can use to sift through information and get to the truth?
Wow. Since I consider myself a features writer, I don't think, if I'm getting your question correctly, I don't think I would ever use fiction, but I do get to use the language I might use in writing fiction. You know, as a journalist, you have to be very, very careful about what you write, what's true, what's accurate, you know, not your opinion. In features writing, yes, I get to use adjectives, you know, without having to account for every one of them. I'm not sure if that's exactly what he was asking.
Well, Mark has appended a comment here. He says, wow, should a journalist blur short story nonfiction with short story fiction? Does the modern day journalist understand the power of interpretation when distributing sensitive information?
I hope so. I hope so. No, fiction has no place in journalism as far as I'm concerned.
And Mark's latest comment is, always remember, feature stories happen before obituaries. Mark, we're seeing a side of you we never knew you had. All right. And we also have a question from Kathy. She asks, what characteristics in particular helped a piece, propelled it in your mind into a contender for the top 10 honors?
I think it was the clarity that the characters were very brightly drawn. You immediately knew who you were dealing with. The situations were always described so you could kind of get hold of them and place them in a place in your mind as you were reading this story. That's, you know, the whole difficulty, challenge of a short story is that you you know, you have so little time to include so much. And if you let it, you know, draw out or meander a little bit, you often water it down. So yeah, they were, I would say, very clear, very, yeah.
Okay, okay. Those are the questions that we have received from the audience so far. Do people have others? Write them up in chat and I'll try to get them in, or do we want to go on? Chrissy?
I think we do want to take more questions. Why don't we, while we give folks a minute to think of questions and put them into chat, let me go through the screen share that Sue has done with the PowerPoint. And we'll watch that for just a little bit. just note this is the year that we had more entries from our youth than any previous year. We had 28 youth entries this year, which was amazing.
That's
So
fantastic.
kudos to our 3 youth writers, leaders. They've really done a good job at motivating our youth and getting them involved in some of our programs. Okay, Bill, back to you. Do we have more questions?
We do have another question. Marina, do you agree that a writer should publish a novel before attempting to submit a short story collection to a publisher or agent?
I honestly, I think if you can write a novel, write a novel. I don't know about the timing per se, how these things tend to, you know, well up in one. Short stories are, collections are tricky. They're not, they don't sell as well for sure as novels. A lot of people, actually one would think, since I have this one here, you would think that people who are busy would go, great, you know, I'm happy to sit down with a few short stories. I can read them on the bus or, you know, while I'm waiting at the dentist, and it would be much handier. And yet people who read, I think, much prefer novels. Certainly publishers do. So if you have a collection of wonderful short stories, you know, go for it, for sure. But if the novel is there, you know, follow your novel's demands, you know. I don't think they're in any particular order. Just know that one is likely to be more difficult to get a publisher to look at.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. Michelle asks, are your works published by, are they self-published, or do you have a publisher through the normal conventional means?
The first 2 were self-published. The book of poetry and the Orphan of Pitiliano is by a small local independent publisher.
Okay, so there is hope for those of us who start with Kindle, huh?
For sure.
I think it was Chris that said that Stephen King cut his teeth on short stories, which is a very good point. And that some, Mark points out that some of Stephen's short stories are full-fledged books. Did I lose the rest of it there? He, okay. I think that's it at the moment.
Yeah, I just read a short story recently by an Italian author that was 13 pages long. So, you know, but it appears in his volume of short stories. So, you know.
Hey, Marina, where is the gallery? I saw that question in there.
Oh, it's the Lemoyne, Lemoyne in Tallahassee. Yeah.
All right. We want to thank you again, Marina, for coming. And now's time to introduce the theme for collection number 14. We will begin accepting entries February 1st. Plenty of emails will go out. Marianne, I'm sure, will have it up on the website for us. And we will accept entry. The guidelines will be up by the end of December. Entries will be accepted from February 1st through April 30th. And our next person of renown happens to be the published book of the year for this year. And she is with us tonight, Barbara Rain, author of The Eerie Tales of the Canal, or Tales of the Erie Canal. I'm sorry, I can't read my own writing. Tales of the Erie Canal. And that fits so well because the theme for our next collection 14, I'm going to show you right now so we can read through it together. You will be the first ones outside of JC and I to know it. It is Thrills and Chills. We expect to get about a bazillion entries. Some people said Footprints was a little hard to work with, and they were kind of frustrated with us. But Thrills and Chills, I think people can write very well. So I will be sending this document out. I'm going to forward it to Marianne and ask her to post it on the website so you can get a head start on writing. We don't expect major changes in the submission guidelines. There's still going to be a hard limit of 1,200 words, and we're still going to ask that you edit, please, before you send it. So there's some examples of Thrills and Chills in literature. And again, we owe a huge thanks to Sue Gerhun for putting this document together for us. There are some writing prompts that are included. I think Sue does a great job with writing prompts. Every year she provides probably 20 or 25 writing prompts, and then she sends more out during the year. So please share these with other Florida Writer members that you know, and also with writers group leaders in case they don't happen to catch it when it's posted on the website. There's the contest information, and we're going to go through April 30th. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can change this. Oh, of course I can. At midnight, and we'll go by the time stamp on the website. So there are 2 entries per person. The guidelines will be posted before December 31st. And remember, if you're one of the 60 winning authors, you do have an opportunity to purchase books at 35% off. If you have questions, you can write to, whoops, we need to take Sue out, contact us, where all the questions go, and Marianne monitors those, or to JC, or to me, and I can't type while I talk, so I had to quit talking to type, and we will answer your questions as promptly as we can. So the other thing that I wanted to share is Barbara Rain's book, Tales from the Erie Canal, is part of the Omega Project, just as Marina's book, The Orphan of Putigliano, was last year. The Omega Project is funded by a former Florida Writers member, Catherine DeFumpo Harding. When she passed away, her husband established a foundation in her name, and from that created the Omega Project. Every year, the foundation purchases 50 copies of the published book of the year, mails them for free to any Florida Writers member. All he asks is that you read it and consider leaving posting something on Amazon or Goodreads that you read it and what you thought of the book. So it's kind of an easy way to get a really great book every year. If you're interested in doing that, please email me at this address and I will see that your name gets on the list. He has the books purchased this year. He's ready to mail them out. He just needs the names and addresses, which I would like to send him this weekend. And I still have some slots open. So please let me know if you're interested in participating.
Chrissy, if I may say something.
Welcome, Barbara.
Hi. If anybody is interested in getting my book, be aware it's Tales from the Erie Canal, E-E-R-I-E. We're not talking about the waterway. We're talking about things that come out of it.
All right. And I'm sorry for bumbling. I just, my writing was not that good. All right. So do we have any, thank you, Barbara. Do we have any last questions, Bill, that have come in? Oh, Bill, you're muted, honey.
None that I have found. Thank you.
Okay. And somebody put in chat, any idea when collection books will be delivered? Amazon tells me they're coming between November 2nd and the 9th, depending on where you live and whether you're one of the ones whose order kicked out the FWA credit card. and I had to go back in and reorder it. All right. So JC, any closing remarks?
I just wanted to tell Marina, thank you, and thank you all of the authors that submitted and are in the book, and you guys did a great job, and really, really appreciate all your hard work.
Yeah, you guys are wonderful. They're great, really super.
Yeah. We're looking forward to JC and I being worked to death next year with all the entries. We are looking for someone else to join us in collections. If anyone has a penchant to do so, please email us and we'll find something for you to do, I guarantee.
Might
We
be
want to
more-
give a, go ahead, JC.
Oh, it might be more than one thing.
Thank you.
I want to give a shout out to Ariel Hoy. I don't believe she's able to be with us tonight. She's the one who did the final editing on the book that got sent to the publisher, which was more work than we intended for it to be. So we are going to be tougher next year on some of the grammatical spelling errors, punctuation, some of that stuff, because it makes such a time crunch at the very end when we're trying to put it together. Thank
Chrissy?
you. Yes,
Chrissy?
go ahead.
I'm sorry, but the cover this year is just phenomenal. Could
It
you give a
is.
shout out to whoever it is that's responsible for that gorgeous cover?
Really.
Thank you. You're right. It's Charles Cornell, and he lives in England. So it's 6 hours later or earlier. I can never remember. But Charles Cornell has designed our covers for the last several years, and he has just signed on for Thrills and Chills cover for next year. So we're excited to have him. He's great. He takes all kinds of input and just does wonders with it.
Yeah.
Right. Any comments? Anybody else? Anything before we sign off and let you go back to your beer and TV and popcorn and jammies and all right. Thank you,
you.
Marina. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you, especially Sue, Chrissy.
Thank you. And we'll let Sue know. Bye.